What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. I need to take a little bit of a break, just a little bit of a me time, a little bit of Morrow time. Honestly, I caught a little bit of a depresso-expresso and didn't feel that great and didn't feel like bringing that negative energy to videos would be a good thing. I'm kind of still in the process of taking time for myself, so it's going to be a little bit on and off here and there, but it is what it is. Either way, I'm trying to get myself back in the saddle. I've got some RPG horror stories for today. A OC couple in my game just broke up over a Nat 1. We have a rule in our game that if your character is making an item, you don't roll crafting or in it right away. Rather, you wait until the item is stress tested, then roll. This is to avoid players just trying over and over again to craft something. Obviously, this is mostly done calmly, having a friend take a swing at a new shield or whatever, but we had a tense moment where the players were running across a field down toward a cliff chased by bandits. The couple, one a human fighter and the other a halfling artisan. Artisan? Do they mean artificer? Or is the new artisan class that's been added? Make it to the edge first. This cliff had an old rope bridge that had fallen apart and was hanging loose. The halfling set to work grabbing all the ropes and was thrown to the other side by the fighter. After one turn of the fighter and two other players holding off bandits, the bridge was ready and the halfling had a +8 to crafting. I say it's a rush job, but you'll pass on a DC of 15 or DC 10 if you wait a turn and continue to work on it. Players decided to hold out another turn, get a bit dinked, but otherwise holding steady. Just before the halfling's third go, the fighter asked to use their movement to cross the bridge with a DC 10. Honestly, don't want to get held up here, so I say sure. They rush first onto the bridge. Halfling gets a Nat 1. No matter. Last of the day, halfling luck. Another Nat 1. Bridge snaps, roll dexterity. Fighter rolls a 13. Yeah, fine. You grab onto the bridge now, hanging off the far side of the cliff. We all had a laugh. This seemed like a silly action movie moment, and thus led to the rest of the party leaping to grab the bridge like a ladder and climb, jumping on top of the fighter. Naturally, meaning the fighter was the last one up and got shot by some arrows, but no real harm done. Party escaped the crisis and set up camp to rest and recover. I absolutely love it when DMs turn a natural 1 or low rolls into a fun storytelling scenario where players can interact and influence it further, whether it be to improve the situation or watch it collapse and go down in flames further. I don't like the DMs that immediately just be like, oh, you got a Nat 1, you die, your party members die, your grandma dies, your dog dies, everything dies, and the whole world is destroyed. I hate when DMs do that sort of thing. But when you have a natural 1 and you turn into a roleplay story scenario and just make it like a more fun part of it, and when you turn into a fun part of playing the RPG, man, does that sound so fun. I love these sort of stories. Anyway, let's continue. The halfling apologized to the party during downtime, feeling really bad about the bridge, and the fighter player was very bitter, saying to the effect of, "You always fail when it's important." At the time, I read this as a very immersed in-character moment of the two characters. It was like watching two actors on stage be angry with each other, and I thought it was all in kind spirits. And here is kind of the problem here. Unless you know your players or you have a talk with them out of game and stuff, you gotta make sure you double check and kind of have a D&D aftercare kind of thing, just to make sure that, you know, no actual feelings are hurt and stuff, and all the air can be cleared up. There are moments sometimes where Morrow can be a little bit more of a broody little bish and can be a little bit rude and stuff, but always double check and make sure with the players that I have interaction with that it's not for me personally, it's just Morrow being bitter because that's just his character personality, but it's not anything personal against the player. Maybe I'm just overly apologetic, or a group of my friends are a little bit overly apologetic and we try to be a little bit too nice to each other, too nice to a fault kind of thing. But I always find it kind of important for myself, at least when it comes to me or my characters coming off a little bit rude, just to make sure double check and be like, yo, so that was just character, but it was super fun. I hope you don't take it personally and we can have more fun with that kind of dynamic and stuff. Next week we go to meet up and Fighter doesn't want to play anymore after the last session. Halfling said she was apparently really upset about it and angry. They broke up the next day after an argument about him coming to the session. I'm sure there were other issues, but I do feel like a catalyst here. I doubt you're the catalyst in the situation. I mean, you're the DM. They rolled natural 1 and you played out the scenario how it is, because sometimes successes and failures are kind of important in telling a story in an RPG medium like D&D. My best guess is there was something going on behind the scenes between the two for Well, probably a while, because having to end the relationship because of a natural one that is all RNG based. Let me go ahead and repeat that. It's all RNG. It's a random number generated, just a random roll and a natural one. And then lucky for another natural one. In fact, I think it's kind of a miracle when you get 2 natural ones back to back. But at the end of the day, it was literally just a random number and another random number, 2 of them stacked up together to create a story. Not to try to pin players against each other. It seems a little bit silly that somebody would want to end a whole relationship over a dice roll. I guess the moral of the story would be, don't let random numbers on a dice roll like break up your relationship or friendship or anything. Probably don't take these numbers so seriously. It's all meant for fun games after all. And if you're not having fun, not enjoying the game, then probably shouldn't play this specific game, I guess. Anyway, let's get to the next RPG horror story for today. LGBT friendly. This is a really short one because I never got to join the game, but I applied to a romance-focused game on LFG. Assuming that since it was tagged LGBT plus friendly, there wouldn't be any issues. I'm a member of the Alphabet Mafia. But when I applied and mentioned my interest in playing and that I would want to play a gay character, I was told other players had listed homosexuality as a hard line on the consent sheet, so that wouldn't work. Wait. Hold on. Let me reread that. Am I understanding the story right? Did the other players, like, rule out or veto homosexual characters from a LGBT plus friendly game? Huh? The DM didn't seem to be malicious, but I feel like it's worth a reminder that to be actually friendly to marginalized groups, you have to be unfriendly to bigots. If someone says they don't want any gay people in your game, and you're cool with that, you can't say it's an LGBT-friendly game. I would also suggest you shouldn't allow people to use consent tools to erase entire demographics of people from your game world. What? Wait, so they used consent tools to join an LGBT plus friendly game? Hey DM, I don't want any gays in this LGBT plus friendly game, even though the word gay is part of LGBT. And the DM was okay with that? Wait, why is the DM okay with that? Wait, Edit. Some people have asked, it was explicitly anything gay happening the other players had an issue with. Not that they didn't want their characters to be gay, which would have been fine. The GM said that the only way it could work is if anything gay was kept to private channels, so none of the other players had to see. Oh! So what you're saying is, you can play in this LGBT plus friendly game as long as any gay characters doing, I guess, gay-related stuff is kept away in private. Almost like in a closet. Maybe the metaphor of putting the gays back in a closet doesn't make sense here, but that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like you are playing an LGBT plus friendly game where LGBT plus friendly stuff and romance related stuff too, it should be allowed, it should be okay. But if you're not allowing gays in LGBT plus friendly, then it's not LGBT plus friendly. It's LBT plus friendly or whatever the fuck. I don't know. This seems so absurd. Make it inclusive spaces is perfectly fine, but this DM for whatever reason allowed, I guess, a few shitheads in his server, in his group, to basically rule out gay people. Or basically saying you can be gay, but if you do anything gay related, like a guy flirting with another guy, or having gay relations, or talking about being gay, or having some sort of gay romances, you gotta do it in private, in the closet, where nobody can see it. I've never seen an LGBT plus friendly game that is actively shoving gay people into the closet. Wow. What a time, what a time we live in. Either the DM is doing some sort of a shitpost, this entire thing is a shitpost, or the DM is actually trying to do something good and trying to be inclusive. But the players in the group are basically being shitheads and trying to, I guess, ruin the game or trying to make the game worse. I'm not fully sure what's happening here. Either way, OP, it sounds like you need to look for a different group, and this group is clearly not worth it. If a group is advertising itself as LGBT plus friendly, then it should be LGBT plus friendly, not specifically ostracize one of the alphabets in the LGBT plus. I'm gonna just vote for the OP to basically try to leave this group and not be part of this group, and for us to move on to the next RPG horror story for today. Sound good? Good. Let's do it. Real life Mary Sue Derails campaign. Full disclosure, I created this account a few weeks ago just so I could post on this Reddit. I learned about this place a while back and have been dying to share a story or two I've accumulated over the years. I've tried to stay within the guidelines and I apologize for any faux pas I may have made with this post. In the waning days of the lockdown, my wife and I were really itching to get back into tabletop gaming. We'd been part of a gaming group for a few years earlier, but the group had a huge falling out. Max, obviously not his real name, none of the names in the story are, and his wife had also been part of this group, but the two had since gone through a messy divorce. So when Max invited us to join a new game at his house, we were unsure what to expect. The game was set to be an evil Pathfinder adventure path, and we were all tasked to create a level 1 evil character. Max, who was notorious for min-maxing his characters, see what I did there, would be GMing the game and wasn't going to play any of the NPCs. The other players in this group would be Jane, Max's new girlfriend, Phil, Jane's best friend growing up, and Nate, Max's best friend and roommate. Jane wasn't very familiar with the game, so Max created a totally broken archer ranger for her. Phil had created a vampire assassin, which was also borderline broken, and Nate had talked to Max into allowing him to create a changeling druid. They had altered the rules a bit to make him a little more nerfed than it would have normally been. My wife and I had come up with a couple of the vilest characters we could come up with, a sleazy lawyer necromancer, and a multi-level marketing bard. One thing to note here is that my wife and I love to create interesting characters to roleplay, and we usually optimize them in for utility rather than combat. Essentially, we create fun characters that can hold their own in a fight if pressed, but are more suited to skill checks and buffing or debuffing, not getting around combat entirely when possible. Taking that into consideration, we were the odd ones out of the game, and this was fine with Max, Jane, Phil, but Nate seemed personally offended that we didn't focus as much on dealing as much damage as possible. Remember guys, this is not a video game, you don't have to maximize your DPS. In D&D, Pathfinder, or really any RPG, it's fine to make a character with a bit of utility, with some stuns, buffing, debuffing, skill checks and stuff. It's perfectly fine and valid. Anyway, let's continue. We had gamed with Nate once or twice in the past, and he seemed like an alright guy, if not a little overly enthusiastic and confident, but a lot of players in the local Pathfinder scene were like that where we lived. Now we were getting full dose of Nate outside of a public venue, and things got awkward real quick. The first few sessions went okay. The rest of the group was a little surprised by our choice of characters, but we were proved very useful by either intimidating NPCs with excessive litigations or lulling them into complacency with lengthy sale pitches. On a side note, I didn't know it at the time, but Max had actually gone through law school and remarked that I was almost convincible as a lawyer and got a lot of the legalese pretty close. Nate showed a little annoyance that we were avoiding some encounters, but mostly he was friendly enough. The thing was though, that Nate liked to have himself a nice glass of spirits from time to time. And by glass, I mean bottle. By spirits, I mean hard liquor. And by time to time, I mean frequently until blackout drunk. Another thing we eventually came to learn about Nate was that he was not just some part-time beer truck driver that lived in his best friend's basement. No, he was indeed the most amazing and interesting person in the entire world. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. I'm assuming this is a dig at Nate's personality, but the one thing I can say is there's nothing wrong with having a bit of libations, with a little bit of a drinky drink, just to kind of relax the nerves and kind of get through the jitters here and there. I don't personally drink when it comes to D&D and stuff. I haven't really tried it. I think it might be kind of okay. I can hold my liquor pretty well, and I can tell my limits, so you know when I should probably stop before I'm going a little bit too belligerent, but some people just don't have those limits, or they rely on drinks to basically open up a little bit more and relax a little bit too hard. And it kind of turns from social drinking into more alcoholism. It's not fun, dude. It's not fun at all seeing people go through that. Anyway, let's continue. As Nate would go from buzz drunk, he would regale us with excerpts from his life story. His first true passion was playing the saxophone, which he mastered in high school. He believed that he was able to accomplish this because he was born with strong ties to the Native American fertility deity Kokopelli. Unfortunately, he abandoned his music to travel to Nepal to train with Buddhist monks that he was quickly able to gain reference from exhibiting his ability to meditate while sitting under the flow of a trickling waterfall of ice-cold glacier water. Okay, and I'm actually tiefling IRL. See what I did there, guys? Lying is extremely easy. Just don't say the truthful thing and make up stuff as you go. Eventually, he would make his way back to the States, where one night he would happen upon a scene of an accident where a drunk driver had flipped their car into the median of a freeway. Immediately, he sprung into action, pushing aside the useless firefighters and paramedics to reach the car with the drunk woman pinned inside. Luckily for her, adrenaline kicked in and Nate ripped the car door off its hinges with his bare hands and pulled the woman to safety before the car caught fire. Being a humble man and not seeking recognition, Nate then fled the scene before the police could question him. Is this Nate's actual IRL backstory that he's making up for a different game or something? Or what's going on here? Sounds like Nate really knows how to tell a lot of porky pies, which basically means lies. I don't know who I heard it from. Some Australian YouTuber said at one point, porky pies, and it kind of stuck to me. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just hungry. Let's continue. Now we get to Nate's great fall from grace. After receiving his master's in chemistry from university, Nate got a job at one of the major food additive companies. He's under an NDA, so he can't reveal which one, where he quickly excelled due to his preternatural sense of taste and smell. He revealed that his sense of smell was so incredible that it caused him much annoyance due to being able to tell to the hour when was the last time a person had had sex or had bathed. Nate was on the edge of a major breakthrough in exact flavoring that would revolutionize the industry, but he was cut down in his prime by a manager that felt threatened by his success. Though Nate had been reduced to but a humble beer truck driver, he was not as down and out as he may have appeared. His new job offered him more time to perfect his art of forging damascus steel, but not the steel that is considered to be damascus steel nowadays. No, you see, Nate had discovered the long-lost ancient method for forging true damascus steel, which is better in every way than any modern steel. His plan was to perfect the technique and use it to forge custom kitchen knife sets that he would then sell to an exclusive clientele. Yeah, I remember in high school when somebody would walk around trying to be a recruiter for kitchen knife set selling and stuff. It was just a big pyramid scheme and stuff. You'd be forced to pay the thing, then it'd sign other people up, and then they'll have to pay the thing, and then the whole money would just trickle down to whoever started the whole thing. It was a massive pyramid scheme. It's nuts, dude. It's actually crazy. Apparently the knife sets were pretty good, but the whole scheme was just sucky. Nate had a lot of irons in the fire, so we're lucky that he even took the time to come and join our little campaign. This attitude combined with his drinking made some pretty unbearable sessions. More than once the party was trying to come up with a plan to hold off a siege or steal a major artifact, while Nate interrogated NPCs that had little to no information of any substance because they were very minor characters. That was when he wasn't trying to pick fights with high-level paladin NPCs that we were obviously meant to avoid at all costs. Oh, this got much worse once he hit level 4 and finally got his shape-shifting ability that had worked out with Max. Early on, he could only shape-shift into general things, but later he would gain the ability to mimic specific people or animals. First really awkward situation with this ability came when we were trying to get ready for some sort of major event, but long sections of the session were dedicated to Nate shape-shifting into a bear to seduce a semi-friendly NPC's bear companion. I don't think any of us knew what exactly his plan was, but he really wanted to get it on with this bear in character, and he would try to create a romantic side plot with him and the bear. Would this be considered bestiality? Or is this just weird? I mean, it's clearly weird, but like, is this considered bestiality? I mean, technically he's a bear, but he's trying to pork a bear, but he's not really a bear, he's just a druid that turned into a bear. This wouldn't be the only time that Nate used shapeshifting to romantically pursue an animal. He did this more than once or twice from what I recall. Although I must admit that there was one time where it was actually useful to the party. There was one session where he had to ruin the reputation to a powerful merchant in town, who ended up accomplishing this by Nate's character shapeshifting into the merchant and very publicly getting intimate with an influential nobleman's favorite horse at the very exclusive ball. This even came back as a recurring joke, with the merchant being labeled as notorious horse lover anytime he was brought up by local NPCs. I stress though, this was one of the very few times Nate's antics were even mildly helpful or relevant to this story. Being known as the guy that shapeshifts into somebody just so you can pretend like the other guy that you're trying to frame is a horse lover, I mean, still weird, but I guess if everybody at the table is okay with it and everybody consents, then I mean, maybe it's okay, but I kind of still feel like it's a little bit monka to do that sort of thing. You could just use illusion spells to do that if you really wanted to, without having to physically pork a horse just to make somebody look bad. I don't know, man, it's just weird. It gives me really weird vibes. Eventually, the session became more and more awkward. Jane eventually quit showing up and then seemingly dropped off the face of the earth. Phil stuck with it and tried to make the best of the situation, but he was spending more and more time playing on his phone rather than trying to stay invested in the game. Nate and I eventually got into an argument over the significance of paprika to Hungarian cuisine, and it got heated enough that Max intervened and asked if it was going to be okay. I lied and told him that it was just a friendly argument, but it obviously wasn't. It was around this point we would have to call the sessions early on focus on side stories because Nate was passing out from time to time. Paprika? You guys got into argument over paprika? Arguments happen between two people that can't drop an argument, right? If it's really not that important, just drop it and just let it be. I mean, not to OP blame or anything, but when it comes to two people arguing, if both can't drop it, then both are equally at fault for trying to carry on the argument. That's just my 2 cents. The end came shortly after my wife's character was killed off in a very difficult encounter. I'd gathered up all my and her loot to sell to pay for a resurrection of her character at a lower level, but in the next session we were both killed off in an encounter that was beyond a difficult CR for the party at that level. I took this as a good time to call it quits. I told Max that we create a couple new characters over the next few weeks, but I'm pretty sure that he knew we weren't coming back. I could be wrong, but I think he knew that things were devolving to the point of no return sooner or later, so ended things the smoothest way he could. I felt really bad doing that to Max, but I think he understood. It was a shame because I really liked hanging out with him and Phil was pretty cool too, but Nate was just too insufferable to deal with. Ironically, Max eventually passed the bar and became an attorney, but I have no idea what even happened to anyone else. I haven't seen those true Damascus steel knife sets out there for sale, but then again, I'm probably just not a high enough rank in the Illuminati to have heard about them yet. Okay, a pretty mild story all things considered. Yeah, Nate's lying does make him look like an a-hole, a complete and utter a-hole, especially if he is a huge disruption when it comes to coming into the session, just drinking and being belligerent and just not making things fun. But although Nate was a big problem, I feel like arguing over paprika of all things probably didn't make things any better, and Max probably could feel that the game is just kind of shutting down and closing up, so he sort of just ended it in a really crappy combat that was completely unbalanced to basically just call it quits right there. Smoothest way to do it is to end it in a proper way, you know, where it actually makes sense. It's not just a TPK. But the best way to do it is just to be outright and just say, hey guys, I'm just not feeling the game anymore. Maybe we can move on to a different game, or maybe we could just drop it here and just call it a day. I'm not gonna say everybody sucks here, because clearly not everybody sucks here. Nate's clearly the biggest problem, but I feel like not talking things out early on was one of the other issues that y'all had. And I recommend next time around, not play around with stuff and just straight up be honest if you have like a weird vibe of stuff. Talk to Max directly or whoever the DM is. It's best to talk things out loud anyway instead of just waiting for things to get better or get worse or what have you. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.